Is there a strategy that'll help you grow your company faster? CEO Sales Strategies is an investigative business podcast for entrepreneurial people who never stop asking questions. Highly acclaimed sales revenue growth expert Doug C. Brown interviews CEOs, business owners, and professionals who serve them to uncover and share actionable tips and methods behind their bulletproof sales strategies. Topics covered on the show include their failures, struggles, secrets, and processes that help them succeed in selling millions to billions of dollars of their products and services, all with the sole aim of helping you grow your business. If you are eager to know the most effective sales secrets from the A players of the game, then the CEO Sales Strategies podcast is certainly the place to be.
Hey everyone, Happy New Year. This is Doug C. Brown with the CEO Sales Strategies podcast now in 2022. And we got a great interview today. This gentleman built his company from $0 to $30 million, then exited, and the company's now grown to 50 million and then gone through an exit itself where it sold off. And he did it all from 0 to 30 million without a sales team. Yep, I'm going to say that again, without a sales team. So pay attention to how, there's some clues in this. I mean, his name is Rand Fishkin. We talked at length about the actual pathway in which he took to actually build these clientele. He was doing an online product. He was doing a SaaS company, but the lessons are still applicable to whether you're doing online or offline. So without further ado, let's go to Mr. Rand Fishkin. Rand, I want to welcome you to the call to the CEO Sales Strategies podcast.
Thanks for having me, Doug. Good to be here.
It's a pleasure having you here. Happy 2022 to you.
Happy New Year.
And I'm so grateful you're here today because, you built a company to $30 million without a sales team, essentially. And a lot of people are going to wonder, how the heck do you do that? So, I think it was Peter Drucker. He had a quote that said, marketing's job is to make sales superfluous. So, marketing's job is to make it, we know the customer so well. So basically, essentially, I don't think he was talking about getting rid of salespeople, but I think he was talking about let's turn them into order takers versus just, having them do all the lifting, and marketing's job is to do that. So I'm really very, very happy to jump into this because I know people are already going, whoa, wait a minute. Let's talk about this. So I guess the question is, how'd you do it, Rand? How'd you go from 0 to 30 million without a sales team?
Ignorance is key. So I did not know anything about sales when I started. So this is my previous company we're talking about. This is also true for SparkToro, but SparkToro is only about $1 million run rate, and it's only been around a year and a half. So, two different businesses, but both of them built without any salespeople or sales team or process, entirely built on the back of marketing, which is something that I also knew nothing about when I started Moz. As a college dropout who became a web designer and, worked with my mom designing websites for local businesses in the Seattle area. And then eventually learned this practice called search engine optimization, which is what Moz's software did, and became the CEO of that company, led it for many years, stepped down, stuck around for a while. But that business was built without a sales team because I didn't know that you could build a sales team or how to build a sales team or any way to do that. And so my approach instead was, rather than, try and figure out sales, it was to build a marketing engine based on several things. Obviously, Moz did search engine optimization well, right? So it ranked for many keywords in Google that lots of people searched for. It had a content engine so that when you clicked from those keywords in Google, those articles that you found, the videos that you found, the content that you found, the landing pages, all helped serve kind of a fairly long marketing cycle of here's an introduction to the brand, here's information, here's content that is helpful and useful to people that they wanted to subscribe to. And then as they became subscribers, slowly over the course of months and years, we marketed the product to them as well, right? If you're trying to learn SEO, you probably want to do many of the things that you do with SEO in an automated fashion with software rather than manually yourself. And that's what Moz's software did. SparkToro, extremely similar, right? This current company is basically all about audience research. So if you want to understand your target customer, your audience, your competitor's audience, an audience that you're trying to reach, people who follow a particular brand online or talk about something on the internet, SparkToro can give you that data. Lots of people don't understand, well, why do I need that data? And how do I apply that data? And when is it useful? And what is it useful for? And so again, we have a content engine. It is not, however, built on search. It's built much more on social media and podcasts and PR and distribution like this. And that has been equally successful. SparkToro's revenue ramp up rate is actually slightly faster than Moz's was in its first 18 months.
Yeah, when I heard you say, well, SparkToro is only doing $1.5 million in their first year, I can hear people out there going, what? Whoa, 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 whoa.
Sorry, $1 million in its first year and a half.
Oh, sorry.
So close.
Sorry, an extra 6 months to get to $1.5 million. So it's $1 million run rate first year. And, I know you as a modest person anyways, based on what we were talking about, previous conversations, but, there's a lot of companies out there that would go, I'd give my pinky finger to be $1 million in my first year. Right.
No, we've had a very good run. And I think, a lot of that is down to a simple product. Right. SparkToro, Moz, I think, was simple for its time. Today I would say that there's products that do it even better now, but, SparkToro is something that's easy to understand quickly. If you are a sophisticated marketer or a product person or a CEO, right, you can look at the data in SparkToro and in a single screenshot kind of get this. Oh, I always wanted to know that stuff. Here's how I learn it. And if you have the problem of, I need this information right now, it's a very reasonable path to just sign right up. So the friction to how do I understand this product? How do I use and apply it? How do I sign up for it? Is very, very simplistic. And we do weird things at SparkToro, like, people email pretty much every day, Doug, maybe every other day, and say, hey, can I get a demo? And, Casey and Amanda and I, we have a standard reply, which is basically, sorry, we're a tiny team of 3 people. We don't have bandwidth for demos. However, you can, here's this video, here's these resources, here's how you can try it for free. Here's how you can see the full results. And so far that's worked pretty darn well. I have a weird admission. This is somewhat embarrassing. I'm sure everyone who's listening, who's a sophisticated salesperson, will be very surprised. I did demos the first 6 months. So pretty much every week I had 2 or 3 demos scheduled. And this is so hard. It's hard for me to even understand why this happened, Doug. No one that I gave a demo to in those 6 months, I won't say no one, but more than 9 out of 10 people who I gave a demo to did not sign up for the product. And there were people signing up every day, right? So we were good at marketing, and I am apparently terrible at sales. So I think this is another reason, right?
So, one other thing about salespeople in general is, are they able to present, right? And my guess is you were definitely able to do a presentation, but whether it was converting or not, that could be something for you and I to take a look at if you ever want to do demos down the line again. But but here's the point. You don't have to. Right. Yeah. It's so simplistic. Like, when I took a look at SparkToro, because I loved what you had on the website. It was like, how to get previously impossible to get data about an online audience's attributes, attitudes, behavior, sources of influence, right? And I am constantly teaching companies in sales, know thy customer.
Yes. Yeah.
Right.
And we have a large number of I would say sales enablement and marketing teams that feed sales who use SparkToro for exactly this kind of thing, right? To help their folks understand their audiences. The fascinating part to me about the marketing and sales, balance is I think that if you have a selection bias issue, which I think is what SparkToro has and possibly Moz as well, which is basically people who in their enterprise function, especially this is B2B obviously, but in their enterprise function are not used to being sold to, right? They're not used to having an engagement with a salesperson. They're used to buying software and subscription-based software and tools and whatever it is in a kind of low friction, purely online, no communication environment. And that's who you're building for, right? That's who SparkToro is building for. That's who Moz was building for. Then I think you find that there's a small number of people who don't fit that profile and therefore aren't familiar with your type of product and your type of, whatever marketing focused approach to sales rather than sales team approach. And when you get a mismatch, that's when you get people who want the demo. I think that's my suspicion is that's the cause of the, 9 out of 10 people that I gave demos to were like, oh, cool. Okay. Now I understand the product and thank you for walking me through it. But I don't think it's something we're going to buy. And obviously, even at the end of the call, there's no sign up, right? And I never email them to kind of pressure them to sign up because it's just an online sign up system. But yeah.
I think your key in this whole thing, because I wrote this down when you were saying that, there's a difference between a demonstration, a presentation, right? Which somebody would call presenting, and a relationship. And I think your key is you build such a strong relationship that you don't need the demo or presentation. And if you built your relationship first and then present later, you might get a different opportunity, because that's what I have found happens in sales. A lot of times when I look at teams and evaluate companies, and I was joking with you a little bit earlier about the presentation thing, right? But the reality is they're great presenters, but they can't build a relationship. And I wrote this path down now, so please tell me if I got this correct. But what I got was the way you build Moz, because come on, folks, he's got $1 million a year growth right now. And he's already, the first 6 months, you're already another $500,000. So let's say over 10 years, that's all that happens. You're, a $10 million company. A lot of people would be happy as could be, but you built a $30 million company without a team on this premise. And let me know if this is right. You go from connection to education, to a relationship, to building high massive rapport, to an offer.
Yeah, I think that could reasonably encompass the cycle. It was often very slow multi-touch process, right? So that education component might include dozens of visits to the website, a subscription to the video series, a subscription to the email newsletter, a subscription to the blog, right? Going to conferences and events and seeing me present at those, all that kind of stuff. And it might be a year or 18 months or 2 years before someone went from, I know what Moz is, to I went to the website and I signed up for a free trial and put in my credit card. So it's a long process.
Yeah, but it's a $30 million gift at the end of it. Right?
Well, I mean, so technically Moz, I think when I left was around $50 million in revenue. But when I ended my tenure as CEO, we were right around the 30, 35 mark.
So you built a foundation for 30 million and they grew to 50. So I clipped you for 20 million on the number.
But that's, I think what's really interesting there is those numbers sound extraordinary. And I think, if you and I owned a business like that, we'd be beyond thrilled, right? Because Moz's margins were extremely high, software as a service, very high margin business. But on the flip side, pretty much a disappointment to its investors, right? Like Moz was in many respects, I think I'm not allowed to disclose it was purchased by a private equity company last year, but I'm not allowed to disclose the purchase price because I had to sign a bunch of stuff. But I don't think its investors would be like, yeah, great job, right? They were disappointed. I was disappointed. I don't think anybody in that company was, thrilled with performance. Whereas this is so weird. I am, if SparkToro gets to $2 million a year, my co-founder and I are going to be beyond thrilled. Yeah. Right? Like that's a resounding success. Absolutely outstanding. Plenty good for accomplishing its goals and more. It's just such a different scale of what's required based on how you raise money and, what the incentives are. Moz was valued based on its growth rate, not its total revenue or its margin or its, profit contributions. SparkToro, growth is not what we're focused on. It's profitability, long-term survival, happiness of the team. We practice this chill work thing where we try to keep our work hours to a relative minimum and our happiness to a relative maximum, kind of rather than the other way around.
We're speaking with Rand Fishkin of SparkToro. It's www.sparktoro, SparkToro.com. I highly ask you to go visit the website. You'll be surprised by what you see there, especially for the investment structure. It's something that everyone in selling needs to know more about the behavior of their folks. It's just the way it is, especially now in 2022. After the pandemic has shifted everything, right? So, and I think what you do is more. Look, in the old days, we had to do what they called focus groups,
yeah, which still have value. Like I don't think, Doug, that SparkToro's approach to data can fully replace, a market research survey or one-to-one conversations with customers and potential customers. I still see incredible value in that, and I try to talk to, SparkToro customers at least several times a week. I think that's hugely important. But you cannot get data like, hey, what percent of our audience that we want to reach listen to these 100 podcasts? That's data that you cannot reasonably get through either a survey or an interview. What you want is passively collected data that's been anonymized and aggregated from their iTunes profile and their Twitter profile and their Facebook profile and their LinkedIn profile. And that's what SparkToro does. So I think there's value in all these kinds of data, but it is it's cool to be able to offer something that hasn't previously existed and certainly not been popularized in the audience research world. And to your point, the pandemic shifted so much human activity online, even activity that wasn't online before. I mean, correct. It's not like 2019 was a low participation on social media year, but 2020, 2021 accelerated that, obviously.
Yeah. And knowing information about our potential buyers allows us to have different conversations. I used to do focus groups, Ron, way back when, right? We would spend tens of thousands of dollars on focus groups, sometimes even more, right? Yeah. But your service does that for one fraction of the cost.
Yeah, $50 a month, $150 a month. Right. Yeah.
Right. So, yeah. So it's one of those things that, knowing information, like before we got on this particular interview, the thing I said to you was, hey, I noticed your wife had a viral blog article that went big time. Yeah. Right. And when I said that, your eyes lit up, right? So it's a rapport building point.
Absolutely, right? There's a big difference between I have something that I think can solve your business problems that I want to sell you, and I care about you first and foremost as a human being. And if you buy something from me, that's great. But if you don't, so what? Like, we're friends now, right?
That's right.
So, my assumption is that for years to come, if we find ourselves in the same city, we can grab a coffee or a drink together and we can chat about the hilarious restaurant experience that Geraldine's blog post, talked about. And that weird 3-page response of what is a horse from the chef, like the power of building real relationships with real people in real ways that show, a depth of care about somebody is just, it's funny, right? It is both a great way to market and sell, and also far more important and valuable to me than marketing and selling.
Well, because it's the ultimate in communication, human to human contact, right? On a personal level. I trademarked humanized communications, I don't know, 12 years ago, right? People told me I was crazy. I'm like, no, it's all about relationship, right? There are, admittedly to me, there are much better salespeople out there than I am, right? But
I cannot judge. I clearly know nothing about sales.
Well, the judgment, an old mentor of mine, I worked for him actually, told me, it's really easy to judge a salesperson. How are they doing with their numbers? Right? That's the ultimate judgment. And any company that I'm not trying to be braggadocious, but any company I ever worked for, or even in the industry I'm in, when you look at the numbers that I generate for sales, they're much higher than the average. And it's because of what we're talking about now, about building relationships and being a master prospector or a master marketer, right? Because a master marketer or a master prospector will always outsell the master closer. Always. And I've been doing this for over 40 years, right? Showing my age a little bit, but the reality is what you're doing is you're building massive rapport with people through time. Marketo did a study. I saw this study, and a couple other people did studies similar, and it showed that 66 or 62, depending on the study, % of leads that come in online will close. But it takes up to a year to close them.
Fascinating. Yeah. I mean, so this seems to be true in marketing universe as well, right? When we see, for example, SparkToro has about maybe 150 or so, 200 people who sign up for the free version every weekday, which is amazing, right? It's super cool. People go to the website, they've heard about it on a podcast, or they saw a webinar about it, or they heard about it from a friend, or they saw something on Twitter or LinkedIn, and they go to SparkToro, they start searching for, some audience they're interested in, and they sign up and check out the free results. Obviously, lots of them don't come back, but a very healthy number, I think it's somewhere in the 20-30% range, will use up their search, use a bunch of searches every month, come back again and again. And many of those people will, within a year to 18 months, sign up for a paid account at some point. So that, speaks to exactly what you're talking about. Moz was very similar, right? I think it was somewhere around 100 free trials, credit card free trials a day. SparkToro doesn't require a credit card to sign up, so it's a little different, which is why the number is higher. But with Moz, about I think it was around 15-20% of those folks turned into subscribers. And then, in the first 3 months, the churn was quite high, but after that, it got very low.
And the reason behind that is you created what I continuously preach: massive follow-up, massive, relevant, and communicative follow-up with a human being.
Yeah, and that's it. I think it's a difficult thing to do at scale, right? We have found that it's very challenging to have that, email and sign up and communication flow in a way that's not too intrusive, but is helpful and timely, and sort of the right quantity of communication, the right style of communication, the right message, education. All those things are, huge areas of impact. And over time, I think we'll continue to refine that series and cycle. And that's essentially how we do sales.
Well, it's exactly, I would say, how you're doing sales. Not to one up you on that statement by any means, but the reality is, this is what I preach to people every single day when I'm talking with them. You must build a relationship. A close is nothing more than building the proper relationship prior to asking one question: would you like to move forward with this at this time? Mm-hmm. It's really that simple. But what I witnessed you do like a master, and you said it was ignorance, right? But it's who you are, and you created this system of creating continuous connection. Now you're getting 200 connections. I think you said a week. Is it right?
A weekday. Yeah.
So 200 connections, which are now then going to a relevant education process for these people, which is going to building the relationship, which is now getting people to go, you know what? I like Rand and his company. I like them. And you know what? I now respect them and trust them. That's the key, right? You got to get them to the trust level. So now I'll start consuming. You know what? It's time for me to actually go forward with this thing. And they're making the decision on their own. And that is the best close in the world.
Yeah. I mean, I think that in a lot of ways, the way that I think about marketing to SparkToro's customers and before them, at my previous company, Moz's, was my job is to communicate what we do, how we do it, why we do it, and who we are. And then we give folks the kind of time and space to experience the pain point that our product solves. And then we have to rely on the fact that we've built this relationship with them so that they think of us first, remember that they like us and that they trust us and go buy from us when they have that problem. And I think when I've struggled, especially with folks who kind of, don't get value out of the product or don't, have a great experience with it, it's much less often that it's a product problem fit, and it's often a problem timing fit.
Yeah.
Right. That basically they signed up because they felt like they really liked me, or they liked the product idea, or they like the content. And then they sign up and go, I don't really have this pain point. I'm not using this. Right. I'm not using it because I don't have the problem that it solves. And so in a lot of ways, we sort of have to wait for that problem to appear, which a lot of products are like that. I think almost all products are like that.
Yeah, but the difference is you're not forcing this upon people, and you never have to build from 0 to 30 million. You're allowing them to come to their own decision. Hey, listen, this is good for me. Right. And you're doing that. See, a lot of times, I think I understand what your presentation challenge was before, right? Because why do people want a presentation? Because they don't understand. They don't understand.
Exactly.
Right. So if we're and I preach this and teach this and I drive this home, and people will go, no, you got to always do a presentation. Not if you build a relationship the right way. Right.
Yeah. There's 4 or 5 people every day who are coming to SparkToro and signing up for the paid version with no demo. And then the people who, the one person every other day or so who's saying like, I need a demo. I think that very often they are the ones who, it's a selection bias issue, right? They're the ones who don't quite get the product. And that's why they've asked for the demo.
Without question, because they're searching for something and hoping the demo sort of fills in whatever they're looking for. The challenge is for most people. Now, I'm saying this because I've closed multi-6-figure deals with never a presentation.
Yeah.
And people go, oh, how do you do that? I do almost what you're doing, right? It's a very similar process. And so the reason I'm bringing this up is because people always think, well, geez, we got to do a presentation. The problem is they're doing a presentation too early in the cycle.
Interesting.
And so when they do a presentation too early in the cycle, all that person has now is, well, I'll compare X presentation to the other person's presentation to the other person's presentation. And the relationship hasn't been built.
Gotcha.
Look,
yeah.
for we will do, think about it. When people try to date, right, and they get in a relationship and they want to be there, they send cards and gifts, and they call the person out of the blue, and they talk about relevant information in their life. They're trying to help them, et cetera, et cetera. But when it comes to sales, most people are like, no, geez, you know what? I'm selling to whatever, CEO, this, that. So, it's the title, I'll sell to it. No, it's a person. And what I think you've done masterfully, and everybody lean in, because this is the key that he did to get to 30 million. And then now they took it to 50. was you followed the process that we talked about in the beginning. You created a connection, you built an education and a relationship, you created rapport through the process, just through doing all of that with continuous follow-up. And then the offer was easy. It's like the offer presents itself every single day. So the offer is really saying, hey, do you want this?
Yeah. Yeah. It's being present when the problem presents itself.
Yeah. And what, look, and the reason I wanted you to talk about this was because one of the number one pain points that people come to hear, and I get, emails and things for, is my sales team's driving me nuts.
Yeah.
Right. They're not doing what I want.
I've heard that too. Sure.
Right. And what you've done is you've basically done what Peter Drucker said: understand and know your client so well that if you want a sales team, it's fine. But if you don't want one, we'll make it superfluous. We'll make it almost unnecessary. And, that is a lot of entrepreneurs' dream. They just want that. So
yeah, absolutely.
You have a book too. I wanted to make sure, because the book is really good.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. Lost and Founder. Yep. And that is very much talking about that Moz journey from kind of 0 to 30, 40 million. And those years as CEO and then stepping down. The experience has many, many painful stories in there too. And many great ones, but I think people have described it as not pulling punches.
Oh, it's absolutely that way. So my wife read it first.
Oh, cool.
Right. She read it first, and we're on because we were flying a lot together at the time. So every airline, she's got her tablet that she's reading this on, and she's then pushing it in front of me. Look at this. Right. And so I'm reading this and I'm going, this is pretty smart. This is really smart. Right. It's real. It's the real deal. So folks, go buy the book. It's the real deal. Right. And so it comes at it from a very, like you said, no punches held, honest and truthful manner. It's not subjective, it's objective, a lot of the book. And it comes from, how do you, hey, I screwed up here. This is how you don't have to, right? Hey, I won here. Here's how you can win, right? It's a great book. I enjoyed reading it. And I'm not a reader, right? I'm an audio guy most of the time. I just, reading doesn't appeal to me.
I had a fascinating time doing the audio version of the book, which is, that's a whole different skill set. Oh my God. After 4 days of 8 hours of reading, your voice gets very tired.
Yes. Yes. So, I really appreciate you being on here. And I know people got a lot out of this, and I know this is making people scratch their heads a little bit, because they're going, how the heck? Because they're not used to it. But the reality is, you built massive relationships, and you had, strong marketing and prospecting going on throughout the process. And that is really the key to being a top performer.
And I think, we had a number of other advantages that are very right. So the price point is a big one, right? So, Moz, I think, topped out at maybe the highest tier was $400-500 a month. Excuse me, SparkToro, it's $300 a month, right? So we're talking about relatively inexpensive price products, the kind of thing you'd put on a credit card. We also had audiences that were used to buying products without sales, right? And so I think that helps too. If I were going after a sector and at a price point with a product where sales was the default, I'm not sure that I would try to build a company in this fashion. So I think there's absolutely lessons that folks, to your point, Doug, can take away from the processes that we use, just as I am very confident that I could learn a tremendous amount from how successful salespeople and sales teams are built too. But it's
it's a continuous customer experience, right? So you've got the front end of that experience really dialed in.
Yeah.
Now, any sales person, and I'll challenge you all out there that are listening, anybody selling, if you don't think that's a great thing, just send me hate mail, right? Because the reality is that that is a queued up, well-qualified lead. And that's what all salespeople want. They want to have the conversation to convert, right? You're already finding out, do they have needs? So you're already finding out everything that the salesperson needs to know. And that's what I love so much about SparkToro is it gives these communication points that people wouldn't necessarily, it makes someone different if they know this information. So you're doing the whole front end for the sales team. And what I do with companies and people who want to be at the top 1% of selling is I come in and I say, listen, you have to align your marketing and sales, customer service, operation. It all has to be one experience for the client.
Absolutely.
And that's what you're doing all up front. So you didn't need the sales team. But if you were in an industry, like you said, that you did need the sales team, I mean, my gosh, you're a heaven sent for those people on what you're doing because they're looking for those type of leads. And this is always the contentious relationship between sales and marketing, because salespeople go, no, I can do this without marketing because they've never had the experience that you provided for your clients. But then when they get that experience, it's like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. Like I'm doing a campaign for a client right now. And I'll have to run it again, but the last look was almost a 67% close rate of every lead coming through. That's huge. Right? But, we do a good job on the back end. Don't get me wrong. I have very skilled people, but it's how they're setting the lead up and they're setting it up.
It's got to be right. You've got to be getting the right folks at the top of the funnel there to make sense. I mean, SparkToro, I think our conversion rate is around 2.5%. So, much, much, much lower, more than an order of magnitude.
Well, and the thing is, Rand, is you were selling a $3,600 to $6,000 product really annually, right? And
sure, at the top end, but,
right? Yeah. So, for most people buying that type of product, even online, it's not going to happen for most companies without even a conversation.
Yeah.
Right. And, we're seeing now online where people are really, they'll go out and they'll spend, $150,000 on a used Lamborghini or something, right?
Sure.
I mean, you got Carvana, you got all the car companies going out there and they're playing havoc with the automobile industry at this point because, it's like, okay, I don't have to deal with going in there and having, put in a little office and having all these little, games being played with me. I can just go up there and bing, 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 boom. Oh, 40 grand, no problem. Pink, you're done. Right. Yeah, they drop it off at your house. They pick up your other car or whatever. Right. So
I definitely feel like some of the, I think both, maybe real estate a little bit less, but car sales for sure. I almost feel like on the consumer side, that experience, which is something that nearly every American at least has felt and dealt with, has almost poisoned the well against sales in a lot of B2C and even B2B, right? People have this historic negative association with sales but often the only kind of sales that they've dealt with is the bad kind. Right. And so you have to ameliorate this reputation and, try and create a new experience for folks. I think that's a tremendous challenge. And it is, I tip my cap to anyone in your field who can do that well.
Well, it is. But everybody knew this was coming. That's the right. I mean, back in the 90s, I was telling people this thing called the internet's going to change the way we sell. And they all said, oh, you're crazy. That's back when I had a full head of hair. And now
Eastman Kodak will live forever as the.
Oh, yeah. That was a big one right there. I mean, we didn't even call it film. We call it, Kodachrome or Kodak, moments. And
that's right.
Right. And now they're no longer, or they might have a tiny little division here and there of another company. So things are changing. Look, General Electric was purchased, right? So there's a lot of things that are changing. And I really appreciate you coming on here and giving people how you did it. And they can take the lessons from this. So I'm going to plug SparkToro again because I really love it. Folks, go to www.sparktoro.com. That's SparkToro.com. Check it out. Understand the intelligence that it brings forth, that you can have better quality conversations and better quality marketing with once you understand this information. Rand, anything I should have asked you that you were hoping, I hope Doug asked this question and I didn't,
No, I think we ran the gamut, Doug. I really appreciate it.
I really appreciate, again, having you on here, folks. Rand Fishkin, company's called SparkToro. Previous company, they built from 0 to 30 million. He left and then they went to 50 million. So, and this one, you're on $1 million plus run rate. So congratulations. And thanks for being on the CEO Sales Strategies podcast.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me. Take care.
Hey, was that great or what? I mean, think about this. I'm going to repeat this. And those of you watching the video side, I'm going to look down here because I want to get this, I wrote this down during, and you heard this, but he went from a connection to building a relationship through education. Then he went from that to building a relationship and deepening it to create trust, respect, known as rapport. He continued to keep educating, keep building the relationship, and kept going on until the offer came. And now when that offer came up, it was an offer that was being offered anyways throughout the process, but people were ready. They said yes. Now, here's the thing I want you to understand out of this, as we were talking about. This is the pathway to building any great relationship, not just a sale. A lot of times, like he said, they're presenting too early. And when you present too early, then all people have to do is be able to compare against your presentation versus someone else because they don't have the relationship. They don't have that trust built. So you're really getting commoditized in that process. And as he said, when they did that, they weren't getting sales. But when they stopped doing that and they just built the relationship and focused on the relationship, guess what? Lots of sales. So he's on $1 million plus run rate right now with his new company called SparkToro. Pay attention because this is the way it's being done. And, as he said, it takes some time to do this. So are you playing long-term or short-term? The other thing is he played win-win, right? When it wasn't a right fit for the clientele, they disengaged. He didn't take clients on and they didn't become problem clients because he didn't take clients on they weren't supposed to have in the first place. So in 2022, start building relationships, start pushing those relationships forward. You'd be surprised. I mean, I've had relationships where, I've talked to them and it's taken 8 years for them to actually purchase. Now you go, wow, Doug, that's way too long of a sales cycle. Depends on what you're selling, number one. But the reality is sometimes people aren't ready right today. And we all want to close today. And that's cool, right? Because that's what we do. That's what we get paid for. That's how we build our companies. That's how we, help fund the growth of the company. And yes, sometimes you got to help people cross that bridge now. But sometimes the bridge isn't ready to be crossed. And the reality is you have to be, as the selling person, the party selling, you have to know whether or not it's the right timing or not. And if they're giving you indicators it's not the right timing, then it's incumbent upon us as the sellers to actually figure out what that time frame is for the client. Now, it doesn't mean you don't try to close them. It doesn't mean you don't try to close them for their own benefit. But if it's truly not for their own benefit, you're better off waiting. Because if not, what will happen is they'll dump out of your sales process and down the line, they'll remember, right? So they may just even go to your competitor at that point. All right. So make 2022 a great year for yourself. If you want any help at all with your marketing, with your sales, you want to grow your company, you want to get more sales acquisitions, you want to improve your sales in general, you want to improve your profits, reach out to me at doug@businesssuccessfactors.com or hit me up on LinkedIn at Doug Brown 1234, as all of you are doing. And if you really love this, do me a favor, go rate this podcast. This year, I'm putting a lot of focus into this podcast. And those 5-star ratings really help. They start moving us up. They get more downloads. They attract more people. Really appreciate that. And reach out to me and let me know, what would you like to have on this podcast? Because the reality is I'm here for you. And if I can provide you information that will help, change your trajectory of your business in a positive manner, that's why we're here. So this is Doug Brown with the CEO Sales Strategies Podcast. Make 2020 a great year. Go out and sell something. Build your life. Be happy.